Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe, and hit the bell icon for latest updates. She became famous on TV, but her heart always loved the garage her dad made. Under old covers and dusty trophies were old race cars, worn helmets, and something amazing that made even Courtney surprised. This wasn't just any garage. It was like a love note about speed, family history, and family. Most people know Courtney Hansen as the smart host of car shows like Overhaul and Ride of Your Life. She's famous in the custom car world. What they don't see is a part of her story that doesn't get talked about in interviews or behind-the-scenes videos. Because way before TV lights, way before cameras and shiny car reveals, there was a garage that was quiet, untouched, and very personal. Not a fake set, not a studio. A real garage. Her father's garage. Hidden away in Minnesota, away from all the attention, sits the place where Courtney's love of cars didn't start on TV. It started in oil-stained boots next to her dad, the amazing road racer Jerry Hansen. While she was getting famous on screen, this garage, looking ordinary from outside, held the real start of her journey. To most people, it looked like an old, forgotten building. But inside, it was like a time machine, a living museum built not for the world to see, but for a racer to remember. Courtney hadn't gone inside in years. Life had moved really fast. New shows, new family, new business ideas. But when she finally went back, something changed. The moment the old metal door made that creaky sound, it was like walking into a memory. The air still smelled thick with rubber and gas. Beams of light came through dusty windows, hitting covered shapes that hinted at forgotten powerful cars. This wasn't just a garage. It was the quiet heart of her past. She wasn't there to make a TV show. She wasn't even sure what she'd find. But under those covers, behind those shelves, and buried under years of untouched dust, was a love letter to racing written not with ink, but with steel, hard work, and heart. To understand the garage, you have to understand the man who built it, Jerry Hansen. To racing fans, he's a legend. A huge name in American car racing history, especially in SECA racing. Over 400 wins in his career, multiple national championships. At one time, he held the record for the most SECA national titles in history. He didn't just race, he dominated. In open-wheel cars, in GT cars, even in prototypes. If it had wheels and made noise, Jerry Hansen probably won in it. But to Courtney, he wasn't just a champion. He was dad. Her first memories of powerful cars weren't in studios or TV trailers. They were at the racetrack, with ear protection over her tiny head, watching her father fly down the straight road in his car, braking late and disappearing around corners. While other kids played house, Courtney played pit crew. She learned what throttle response felt like before she could ride a bike. Jerry didn't force her into cars. He didn't need to. The garage was her playground. Wrenches were her toys. Engine parts were like puzzles, and every story he told had the sound of revving engines and shifting gears. He taught her that speed wasn't just about horsepower. It was about being precise, being committed, and having instincts you couldn't fake. Even as Courtney became a TV personality and custom car expert on her own, her father's influence quietly followed. She carried it with her into every shop, onto every set. But that garage, that was where it all started. And when she came back to it after all those years, it was like Jerry had never left. Courtney hadn't stepped into that garage in almost 10 years. Life had moved fast. TV shows, hosting jobs, raising her daughter, starting her own builds. But after her child was born and time passed, something inside called her back. Not to make content, not for an interview. Just to visit the place that raised her without ever saying a word. When she drove up to the garage, it looked almost empty and forgotten. Faded siding, a rusty lock on the main door. Vines growing over one side like time had been trying to swallow it whole. But when she turned the key and pushed the door open, she wasn't met with silence. She was met with stillness. The kind of stillness that hums with memory. The smell hit her first. Old oil, grease, sun-baked rubber. The scent of race prep mornings and last-minute fixes. Then her eyes got used to the light, and she saw it. Everything exactly how it had been. Workbenches stacked with tools. Old spark plugs lined up like museum pieces. Race suits hung on a board with hooks, faded with time. Courtney didn't speak. She just walked slowly, each footstep echoing through a space frozen in time. And then she saw them, covered shapes resting quietly under dusty gray covers. She could already guess what was underneath. Her heart pounded, because under those covers weren't just machines. They were the ghosts of laps once driven and memories waiting to be found. Courtney hesitated before pulling back the first cover. Dust puffed into the air, catching the sunlight like smoke. Under it, a 1970s Saab 99 rally car. Faded sponsor stickers, chip parts, and a cracked windshield still covered with rally dust. The next cover showed a Datsun 240Z. Not showroom perfect, not polished, but built for a purpose. Modified for rally stages, its body had scars like metals, faded paint, strengthened fenders. The names Hansen/McGregor were still written on the side in peeling stickers. Courtney smiled. She remembered that co-driver. Scottish accent, big laugh, always chewing gum. But the real mystery was the last car frame. A low sports car shape, European curves. No badges, no identification number, just raw aluminum and purposeful lines. Something about it felt secret, like an experiment, like a project Jerry had been building without telling anyone. The way the panels were put together hinted at racing heritage, but it wasn't in any of his documented builds. Courtney stood there quietly wondering, was this his final project or one he never finished? Each car wasn't just a vehicle. They were timestamps, snapshots of her father's obsession. And now, with no cameras around, she could finally see them the way he meant them to be seen. But what came next, the helmets on the far wall, would hit even harder. The cars were powerful, but it was the helmets that stopped her. Mounted on a weathered plywood wall near her father's old workbench were more than 12 race-worn helmets. Each one was a chapter in a life lived at full speed. Courtney moved toward them like approaching holy ground. The first was easy to recognize. White with red stripes, and the name Jerry Hansen written across the back in cracked letters. It still had faint tire marks. Not copies, real damage. One helmet had a spider web crack running down the right side. She knew that story. Road America. A crash in turn 3 that could have ended a career, or worse. But Jerry climbed out, bloody but smiling. Another helmet, matte black and narrow, had a sticker that read, "Do not wash." Lucky. Courtney laughed. Her dad was never superstitious. Except when it came to that one. Tucked behind the rest was the smallest helmet on the wall. Pink stripes. C. Hansen written in shaky marker. She'd almost forgotten it existed. A gift from her dad when she was 6. She used to wear it while helping in the garage, crawling into race cars too big for her body, but just right for her dreams. The chin strap was still frayed from all the times she refused to take it off. But one helmet stood out. Slightly newer. Gold-tinted visor, still had dried mud crusted near the edges and taped to the top, a tiny note. RA81 still hurts. Courtney smiled. Her father's shorthand, Road America again. The race he won but limped away from. He never told the full story. Just said that car wanted to kill me. I beat it anyway. And under those helmets, a filing cabinet, locked unlabeled. And hiding the most personal chapter yet. Courtney ran her fingers along the top of the cabinet. It was dented, dusty, and had a lock so old it could have rusted shut, but the key was somehow still hanging on a hook nearby, labeled in her father's handwriting. Old Thoughts, that's what he called it. She turned the key, and the door creaked open. Inside, yellowed folders, film envelopes, handwritten letters on line paper, some smudged with fingerprints. These weren't contracts or race entries. They were moments, real ones. She pulled out one envelope marked pre-race, Laguna Seca. Inside, a letter addressed to my crew chief dated 1979. It was from Jerry to his lead engineer. A mix of technical notes and heartfelt thanks. It ended with, "Let's make this one for the books and maybe for the bottle too." Another was a stack of old instant photos, grainy images of pit lanes, mechanics asleep on toolboxes, Jerry with a helmet under his arm, and oil smudged across his forehead. But tucked in the back of the drawer was a folded piece of pink construction paper. Courtney's eyes widened. It was a note she had written as a child. "Dear Daddy, I hope you win, but if you don't, you're still my favorite racer. Love, Courtney." There was even a crayon drawing of a race car with number 1 Dad written on the door. The back was dated in her father's hand. Mid-Ohio, 1985. Best race I ever ran. Tears welled in her eyes, not because of the note, but because he'd kept it all those decades. It had lived in that drawer longer than some of his cars had existed. It was proof undeniable that even in the world of trophies and lap records, what mattered most was never the win. And behind that drawer, a sealed wooden crate with her name on it. It was heavier than it looked. The wood was hand-finished, the edges carefully sanded. No stickers, no labels, just a carved panel on top that read Courtney open at retirement. Her heart caught in her throat. She hadn't known this existed. She'd never seen it before. With shaking hands, she popped the brass latches and opened the lid. Inside was a custom-built display, an entire life in 1:18 scale. Dozens of tiny cars, each placed on a soft black velvet platform. Every car her father had raced, recreated with surgical detail. Paint scuffs, tire wear, race numbers. Even the tiny sponsor decals matched old race footage she'd seen. Under each car was an engraved plaque. Watkins Glen 1974, Sika Nationals 77, Lola T70, Road America 81. And at the center of the case, a handwritten note protected under the glass. "These were the best laps of my life. Every turn, every pass, every close call. I did it knowing you'd be watching. Thanks for every garage night, every cheering smile, and every hug before the green flag dropped. Love, Dad." Courtney couldn't speak. Her breath caught somewhere between a laugh and a cry. She reached down and gently touched the model of the Datsun, her favorite as a kid. The smell of the garage, the memories, the noise, they all came rushing back. This wasn't just a gift. It was a legacy handcrafted in silence. And it reminded her of something she hadn't felt in years. Not just pride, but purpose. There were no cameras, no production crew, no scripts or retakes, just Courtney alone in the garage, surrounded by memories that had been waiting years to be remembered. She sat down on the cold concrete floor. The model display still open in front of her. In her hands, she held the tiny replica of the Lola T70, her father's favorite. Her favorite, the one she used to pretend to race in the hallway with toy cars as a child. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The quiet was enough. A few tears ran down her cheek. Not from sadness, but from weight. The kind of weight that only comes when you realize someone's been speaking to you for years without using words. This was that. Every car in that display, every note, every covered car frame in the garage, it was all a message she was just now hearing completely. She took out her phone, not to post, but to record. Just a short video for her daughter. A walkthrough of the garage, a memory log. The way her dad had saved the past, she wanted to save this moment, too. Not for fans, not for a show, for family. Then she climbed into the actual Lola, the real one, the race-worn beast with decades of track history in its frame. She gripped the old suede wheel, still stiff with age, closed her eyes. For just a second, she could hear it again. The engine, the pit crew, the scream of tires, and the cheers of mid-Ohio echoing off the stands. And in that silence, she realized something no camera had ever captured. This garage was the first set of her life story, and still the most honest. Courtney Hansen's career has been built in front of cameras. She's hosted some of the biggest custom car shows in the world. She's traveled, worked on legendary builds, earned respect in a male-dominated industry, and paved the way for women in the garage space. But none of that compared to what she felt in that dusty building her father once called workshop. Because this was where it all started, not with lights and microphones, but with grease-stained jeans and Sunday afternoons handing tools to her dad. She remembered the first time she used a torque wrench. Not because someone taught her on a set, but because her father needed help adjusting a suspension late one night. No audience, just trust. In that garage, no one cared about ratings or sponsors. There were no critics, just moments. Learning how to gap spark plugs. Watching her father rebuild carburetors like an artist sketching by memory. Those lessons weren't about cars. They were about patience, about discipline, about care. And the older she got, the more she realized those traits had shaped every step of her life, even off camera. It's easy to build fame. It's harder to build roots. That garage was a time capsule, yes, but it was also a mirror. It showed her who she really was. Not the host, not the personality, not the brand, but the daughter, the builder, the one who got her hands dirty because love in her family was often expressed through machines. And no matter how far her career had taken her, that garage made one thing clear. She never really left it behind. Today, the Hansen garage looks much the same, but its purpose has changed. Part of it, Courtney decided, will remain untouched. A small section near the back where the model display now sits in a glass case. Visitors can view the helmets, the old instant photos, the hand-marked blueprints. A tribute not to victory, but to dedication. The rest of the space, it's alive again. Not sterilized into a museum, not frozen in time, but working, breathing. Courtney uses it as a test bed. Sometimes for her builds, sometimes to teach her daughter the same lessons she once learned. It's not about legacy anymore. It's about continuing the story. The cars still smell like oil. The floor still squeaks in one corner. And the Lola, it hasn't been restored. It never will be, because the cracks and chips are part of the truth. The proof that this place was never built for appearances. It was built for real work, real memories, and the kind of love that doesn't need to be spoken to be understood. Visitors often ask Courtney why she didn't share this place earlier, why it stayed private for so long. Her answer, because this garage wasn't built for TV, it was built for us. In a world chasing attention, Courtney Hansen found something far more lasting. In steel, dust, and the heartbeat of a garage that raised more than just cars. It raised a racer. It raised a storyteller. It raised a legacy.